Grandma, don't look back. We need to go. Noah's voice was low, urgent, far too sharp for a 10-year-old. His hand clamped mine, eyes darting past my shoulder. I forced a smile. Sweetheart, your bus is right there. But he wasn't watching the buses. His gaze stayed locked on the crowd, pale and serious. Dad said, if they came, I should tell you. We can't go home. A chill ran through me. Daniel's late-night calls, his cryptic warnings suddenly made sense. 2 men stood too still near the escalators, watching us. Noah tugged harder. Please, Grandma. I nodded, letting him lead me. We wolfed through travelers, steady but swift. Every instinct begged me to turn back, but his words echoed louder. Don't look back. When the night air hit my face, I knew my ordinary life was over. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I am Margaret Ellis, 65, not a spy or soldier, just a grandmother who baked pies, tended her garden, and loved her grandson fiercely. But in a single night, I discovered that love could turn me into the bravest fighter of all. Now, let's begin. The air outside Union Station carried the smell of diesel, pretzels, and rain-soaked concrete. Noah's small hand was wrapped tightly around mine, his grip far too firm for a boy his age. He hadn't let go since whispering those words inside the station, don't look back. We need to go. I tried to steady my breathing as I led him through the crowd. Tell me exactly what your dad said, I murmured, keeping my voice calm, as though we were discussing his homework. Noah glanced over his shoulder, then pulled something from his backpack. He said, if I saw men watching us, I should give you this. I slipped it into my handbag without hesitation. A composition notebook, scuffed from wear. When my fingers brushed deeper inside, they touched plastic, thin, hard, unmistakable. A prepaid cell phone. My heart sank. Daniel hadn't trusted me with secrets in years, not since his work at the shipping company started consuming his life. And now he was leaving them in my care, passed through the hands of his 10-year-old son. We reached the taxi line. A black sedan lingered at the curb across the street, its engine idling. Noah tugged my sleeve nervously. I didn't turn my head, but my instincts told me he was right. We were being followed. When our cab arrived, I leaned into the driver's window. South Loop, I said quickly. Adams and Wabash. Not home. Too obvious. But close enough to familiar ground. The ride was silent except for Noah's uneven breathing. Every time I caught his reflection in the window, he was staring past me, watching the car that shadowed us 3 lengths behind. I reached into my purse, the burner phone heavy in my palm. The screen lit up. Do not go home. Trust no one. Keep Noah safe. No name. None was necessary. By the time we pulled into Adams Street, I knew my world had already shifted. I handed the driver cash and led Noah into a Greasy Spoon diner, its neon sign buzzing against the evening gloom. Inside, I slid the notebook open just enough to see Daniel's handwriting. Lines of numbers. Arrows. Names I didn't recognize. A code, or maybe a map. Whatever it was, my son had left us in the middle of something far larger than either of us had imagined. And for the first time in my life, at 65 years old, I realized I wasn't just a grandmother anymore. I was the keeper of dangerous secrets. The diner was nearly empty, the kind of place where time stood still and the coffee never stopped brewing. A waitress with tired eyes brought Noah a plate of grilled cheese and fries. He pushed the food around, appetite gone. I kept my gaze low, notebook open under the table. Numbers, arrows, initials. None of it made sense to me. But Daniel's handwriting, I knew that well. I'd seen it in birthday cards, school permission slips, notes tucked under magnets on the refrigerator. Only now it wasn't telling me he'd be home late. It was telling me to run. The prepaid phone buzzed again. A text, short and sharp, stay away from police. They're compromised. Trust only who I send. My throat tightened. If I couldn't go home, and I couldn't go to the police, then what options were left? Noah leaned closer, whispering. Grandma, are we in trouble? I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, masking my fear with a smile. No, sweetheart. Your dad just needs us to be careful. But I was lying, and he knew it. Through the diner's front window, headlights swept past. For a moment, I saw the reflection of that same black sedan. Parked across the street. Waiting. I folded the notebook shut, slid it deep into my bag. Finish your fries, I told Noah, my voice steady. We're leaving in 5 minutes. When we stepped outside, the air felt heavier. That car was still there, engine humming. A man sat behind the wheel, his face in shadow, cigarette tip glowing faintly. I gripped Noah's hand and walked quickly, turning down a side street. My heart thudded with every step. This wasn't a coincidence. They weren't just watching. They were hunting. Half a block down, I saw the glow of a bus station sign. Maybe we could disappear in the crowds, slip away to anywhere but here. But before I could make a decision, the burner phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a call. Unknown number. I pressed the phone to my ear. A man's voice, low and urgent, came through the static. Margaret. Listen carefully. Daniel trusted me. You don't know me, but I can help you. Take Noah. Leave the street. Now. I froze, torn between fear and instinct. Whoever this was, he knew my name. He knew Daniel. He knew everything, and as I stood there in the glow of that buzzing bus station sign, I realized one thing: this night was only the beginning. The voice on the other end of the line was gravel and authority, patient but sharpened by urgency. Listen to me, Margaret. Don't talk. Walk to the corner of Halsted and 26th. There's a man in a gray cap by the deli. Give him the bag with the notebook and the phone. He'll lead you to a safe spot. Do exactly what he says. Who are you? I whispered, because even whispering felt reckless. No time. The line clicked dead. I looked at Noah. He watched me with the same wide, haunted eyes that had belonged to his father when Daniel was a boy and something had gone wrong at work. He didn't ask for explanations. He simply nodded, as if he already understood that adults sometimes had to do dangerous things because love demanded it. We moved fast but without panic, threading through back alleys where the neon couldn't find us. I tucked the composition notebook deeper, turned the prepaid phone's face inward so nothing flashed on its screen. My whole body hummed with a cold electricity, not just fear, but the wild clarity of someone whose life had been adrift until this moment and was suddenly, horribly purposeful. The gray-capped man waited exactly where the voice said he would, leaning against the deli wall, hands folded, eyes scanning the street like he owned it and yet didn't want anyone to know he did. He was older than I expected, maybe late 50s, hair silver at the temples. His jaw tightened when he saw us. He stepped forward without a question. You Margaret Ellis? He asked. Yes. My voice tightened around the single syllable. He took the bag from me with a motion that was gentle as a blessing. He checked the contents quickly, fingers practiced. Noah? He asked. Noah stammered his name. The stranger smiled once, a small, sunless thing. Good kid, he said. Stay close and don't look anyone in the eye. We move. The gray-capped man guided us through a maze of side streets until we reached a building that sagged into the block like a secret kept too long. A fire escape ladder clung to the brick like an afterthought. He led us up 3 flights and into a narrow apartment with curtains drawn and the smell of old coffee. The lights were on low. Books lined a single shelf. A kettle hummed on the stove. You can sit, he said. Noah, make yourself comfortable. Mrs. Ellis, I'm Alvarez. I used to be a cop, retired, used to know your son. His voice softened. Daniel did me a favor once. I owe him. Relief washed through me so sharp it made my hands tremble. I sank into a chair, feeling the weight of the last hour unspool for a moment. Alvarez looked at Noah with an expression that wavered between fondness and alarm. Your dad is a clever man, he said. He knows how to hide in plain sight. He also knows how to pick people who will move when things go bad. Noah curled against my side, finally eating a chip without complaint. The old policeman spoke like someone stitching facts together from a long ledger. He explained what little he knew: Daniel's work at the shipping company, anomalies buried in manifests, a whisper of mercenaries hired to stop men who asked too many questions. Alvarez had contacts, a network of retirees who owed favors and buried favors in shoeboxes. It was crude, but it was alive. We stayed in that dim apartment for what felt like hours. Alvarez brewed coffee thick and bitter, and the radio he kept on a low frequency murmured the city in the background. For the first time since the station, I let myself believe there might be a path through this. Daniel's handwriting, those arrows and numbers, could still mean rescue. They could mean exposure. Both possibilities tangled in my chest. Then the apartment window shattered. It was a sound that split the night, glass raining onto the floor, a splintering that made every animal noise in the building hold its breath. Alvarez swore, the coffee sloshing from the cup in his hand. He was on his feet before I had time to think, the old reflex starting bones and sinew into motion with a practiced ease I envied. They came at us like shadows given shape, men in black, faces masked, moving with the coordination of people who'd rehearsed this moment. Gunlight glanced off the metal of their weapons. Explosion, no, not an explosion, but the sound of a battering ram hitting a door echoed from below. Someone shouted commands in a voice meant to be heard and feared. Alvarez shoved me toward the bedroom where Noah slept. Get him up. Now. He kicked a closet door aside and grabbed a bandana, handing it to me without a word. My hands moved because survival had a rhythm all its own: yank the covers, scoop up the backpack, pull a shirt over Noah's head. The intruders moved through the apartment like cold water through reeds. There was a crack of a rifle, the pop of a pistol, and the ceiling seemed to rain plaster. Alvarez returned like an animal protecting young, but he came back wounded. A bright bloom spread on his sleeve where a bullet had grazed him. He gritted his teeth, more annoyed than wounded. Fire escape, he hissed. We don't have time for anything else. Out the back window. 2 at a time. Keep quiet and move. I pushed Noah through the small bedroom window like he was a parcel of something priceless. The cold metal ladder bit into my palms. He climbed first, tiny hands numb. I followed, hauling myself onto the landing as Alvarez covered us, each step a beat measured by someone who had lived long enough to count seconds like prayers. Down below, the street had become a tableau of terrible purpose. Men moved in synchronized chaos, taking the building like it was theirs by statute. Headlights flashed. A boom of sound cracked the air. Dogs barked. Someone screamed. We hit the pavement like thieves. No one stopped us. We ran without direction, Alvarez limping at our side, blood dark at his cuff. He kept looking back over his shoulder, jaw tight. They got our plate, he muttered. They tracked the rental. They weren't amateurs. I pulled Noah into the shadow of a delivery bay, crouched down like a child hiding from punishment. His breath came shallow and fast. He looked like a small statue someone had carved from grief. He found my hand and held it with a grip that said he trusted me even when the world did not. Alvarez pressed a folded paper into my hand. You need to move. I'll get what I can, call in a favor. I'll find a doctor for this. His voice was a rasp now. But you can't stay in the city. They'll sweep through every safe pocket they think we'll fumble into. Get out. Go south. Find Ethan, he used to be your student. He can read codes and a screen. He'll know how to hide data and who to trust. Ethan? I repeated. The name landed like a stone in my lap. Daniel had mentioned a former student months ago, someone who worked in cybersecurity. I had brushed it off as Daniel being Daniel, always collecting odd threads he thought would make sense one day. Alvarez nodded once. He owes the favor to your boy now. He pressed his hand on his side, teeth clenched. I'll patch this up. Don't come back for me unless it's with a plan. We left him crouched in the doorway as the building behind us went quiet except for the slow, methodical noise of people searching. Sirens began to wail far off, a song that came too late to save the moment. We ran. Noah didn't speak until we were 3 blocks away, breath fogging in the air like little ghosts. "Grandma," he whispered. "Yes?" My voice was a frayed string. "Will Dad be okay?" His question carried the whole map of my fear and hope at once. I didn't have the answer. I only had the battered notebook in my bag, Alvarez's instructions folded into my palm, and the sudden, awful knowledge that our lives had narrowed to small, critical choices: whom to trust, where to run, and how to protect a child who had given me more courage than I'd known I owned. "We'll find him," I said finally, because the truth I could give him now had to be ballast, even if it trembled. "We'll find him and we'll make sure he's safe." We kept moving until the city swallowed us and our footsteps were just another percussion among a million. The night bus rattled south, its windows fogged with the breath of strangers. Margaret sat rigid in her seat, Noah tucked against her side, his head heavy on her arm. Every time the bus jolted over a pothole, she tightened her grip on the bag that held the notebook and the prepaid phone. Alvarez's words kept echoing, "Find Ethan." The city thinned into industrial sprawl. Margaret traced streetlights streaking past the glass, wondering if headlights behind them belonged to the syndicate. She hadn't let herself close her eyes, not once. By dawn, they were walking up a cracked sidewalk in Hyde Park. Ethan's apartment building was a gray tower, its balconies crowded with satellite dishes and potted plants. Margaret buzzed the intercom. A groggy voice crackled, "Yeah?" She hesitated, then said, "This is Margaret Ellis. Ethan, I used to teach you, AP English, sophomore year." A pause. Then the door buzzed open. Inside, Ethan looked nothing like the nervous 16-year-old who once scribbled poetry in the back of her class. He was 30 now, hair longer, circles under his eyes from too many screens. He wore a hoodie with the drawstrings chewed and had 3 monitors glowing behind him. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, voice caught between disbelief and concern. "What the hell are you doing here?" She held up the notebook like a relic. "Daniel left this for me." Ethan pulled her inside fast, locking the door. His apartment smelled of coffee, pizza boxes, and machine heat. Noah sat quietly on the couch, hugging his backpack, while Ethan slid into his chair and opened the notebook. "Jesus," he muttered, scanning the pages. "These aren't just numbers. They're references to shipping manifests, port IDs. It's all cross-indexed." He flipped faster, his mind racing. "Your son was mapping something big, shipments disguised as humanitarian aid. Food, medicine, blankets." He stopped, eyes narrowing. "But here," he jabbed a finger at a line of symbols. "This isn't aid. This is weapons-grade hardware. Small arms, explosives, even tech components. They've been moving them in under charity covers." Margaret's chest tightened. She thought of Daniel hunched over his laptop, exhausted, drinking too much coffee, brushing off her questions with a quick, "Work stuff, Mom." "Why would he leave this with me?" she asked softly. "Because you're the only one he trusted not to look too soon, or talk to the wrong person," Ethan said, still scanning. "And because someone is already inside law enforcement. If you went to the cops, you'd be dead before the paperwork printed." The prepaid phone buzzed on the table. Ethan glanced at it, then at Margaret. "Answer on speaker." She pressed the green button. Static filled the room, then a calm, measured voice, "Mrs. Ellis. You've involved Ethan." That was predictable. Her breath caught. "Who is this?" "Someone who can end this nightmare before it gets worse," the voice replied. "But you have to cooperate. Deliver the notebook. Tonight." Noah's hand slipped into hers, small and tight. Ethan leaned forward, muting the mic. "Don't trust him. That's not Daniel. That's them." The voice returned, sharper now, "Tick-tock, Mrs. Ellis. Every hour you wait, Daniel suffers. You have 24 hours. The line went dead. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of Ethan's machines. Margaret stared at the phone, pulse hammering, as Noah's grip dug into her palm. 24 hours, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. They're bluffing. They want you scared enough to hand it over. But Daniel's alive, Margaret. He has to be. He left too many trails. She closed her eyes, fighting tears. Alive. Captive. Used as leverage. Her son, tangled in something too big for her to imagine. And now she had 24 hours before the world closed in. Ethan insisted on moving again before nightfall. Safe houses are only safe for a few hours, he muttered, shoving cables and drives into his backpack. Once that call hit the line, they probably triangulated your signal. You stay in one place too long, you're done. Margaret helped Noah into his jacket. The boy's face was pale, but his eyes were steady, too steady for a child. He'd stopped asking questions. That silence frightened her more than anything. They left Ethan's apartment under gray skies. The city felt different now, every passerby a potential threat, every idle car an enemy watching with the engine cold. Margaret kept her head down, Noah close at her side. By late afternoon, hunger drove them into a roadside diner along the highway. A neon sign flickered in the window, promising homestyle meals, 24 hours. The place smelled of grease and onions, the kind of food that lingered in your clothes. They slid into a booth near the back. A waitress approached, notepad in hand. She was maybe mid-40s, hair tied back, eyes quick but tired. Margaret ordered soup for herself, chicken fingers for Noah, coffee for Ethan. When the waitress returned, she set the plates down but lingered a moment too long. Her eyes shifted, scanning the windows, the door. Then she leaned closer, voice barely audible. Don't turn your head, she said. There's a man in a black jacket by the counter. He's been watching you since you walked in. Margaret's pulse jumped. She resisted the instinct to glance. The waitress's hand brushed hers lightly, as if passing silverware, but her grip lingered. I know the look, she whispered. Corporate tail. I had one on me once. Get your boy out the back when you can. There's an alley exit by the kitchen. Then, as if nothing had been said, she straightened and walked away, refilling coffee at another table. Margaret forced herself to eat a spoonful of soup, pretending calm. Across the diner, she caught the man's reflection in the mirror behind the counter. Black jacket. Phone on the table. He wasn't eating. Just watching. Ethan leaned forward, voice low. She's right. We can't sit here. Margaret nodded, sliding from the booth and pulling Noah with her. They walked toward the bathrooms, then veered left into the kitchen. Fryers hissed, cooks shouted, but no one stopped them. A red exit sign glowed at the far end. They burst into the alley, the smell of dumpsters and oil replacing fried food. Margaret hurried Noah forward, Ethan close behind. The waitress appeared at the back door, slipping them a set of keys. Blue Ford, 2 blocks down. Laundromat. Take it. Margaret froze. Why? The woman's eyes were sharp, full of old fear. Because I survived once, and someone helped me. Now it's my turn. She shut the door before Margaret could thank her. They ran. The Ford was dented, rust licking its sides, but the engine turned over on the first try. Margaret gripped the wheel with hands that still shook. As they pulled into the street, Ethan glanced back. The man in the black jacket had come out of the diner, phone pressed to his ear. Watching them go. Margaret tightened her jaw, eyes on the road. The waitress's warning burned in her mind. There were strangers who would hunt them. And strangers who would save them. The hard part was knowing which was which. The Ford's engine hummed unevenly as Margaret steered onto the highway. The sky slid into dusk, painted orange at the edges but heavy with clouds. Noah sat in the back, silent, hugging his backpack like a shield. Ethan had the notebook open again, laptop balanced on his knees. The glow lit his face, sharpening his focus. Listen to this, he muttered. Shipment IDs out of Savannah, Charleston, Houston. Containers listed as medical aid. He tapped the page. But inside? 90% sure it's weapons. Smuggled under charity cover. Margaret's stomach clenched. She remembered Daniel's words when he last visited, distracted and restless. Sometimes the world isn't what it pretends to be. Ethan flipped to a circled string of symbols. Not random. A personal cipher. Daniel built it. Margaret leaned closer. Can you break it? He gave a humorless laugh. Not easily. But there's a pattern, looks like coordinates tied to a date. If I'm right, he hesitated. Margaret's pulse raced. If you're right, what? Then Daniel isn't just leaving evidence. He's leaving breadcrumbs. He expected you to follow. She gripped the wheel harder. You're saying he wanted me involved? No, Ethan said carefully. I'm saying he had no one else left to trust. If this trail ends where I think, Daniel may still be alive. And he wanted you to find him. From the back seat, Noah's voice cut through, quiet but sharp. Or he wanted us to see the truth if he didn't make it. Margaret's chest tightened. In the mirror, her grandson's face looked too old for 10. Silence filled the car for a mile. Then Ethan spoke again. Coordinates point to a shipping yard. Heavy security. That's where Daniel's trail ends. Margaret nodded, though her throat ached. Relief, dread, hope, all tangled together. She wanted to believe her son was alive. But a thought whispered in her mind, what if Noah was right? What if Daniel wasn't the hero anymore? The car rolled into a rest stop on the outskirts of Indiana after midnight. Margaret parked far from the lights and shut off the engine. Noah slept in the back, finally surrendered to exhaustion. She draped her jacket over him, brushing his hair gently. The simple act steadied her, though her chest still stormed. Ethan hunched over the notebook again. Triple check. The coordinates line up with the port of Chicago. If Daniel's alive, he's there. Margaret's hand tightened on the wheel. She didn't want to imagine her son caged in steel. The prepaid phone buzzed. Alvarez's number. She hesitated, then answered. His voice was rough but alive. You're still breathing. Good. He coughed, then continued. Listen. You can't take this to the docks alone. They'll cut you down before you get close. I've got a contact in the bureau, not dirty. Get the notebook to him. He can bring this down properly. Margaret swallowed. And Daniel? If he's alive, then the bureau will know where to look. Don't throw yourself into their jaws. Ethan shook his head violently, mouthing don't trust it. When Alvarez paused, Ethan whispered, Daniel's notes said law enforcement was compromised. What if it's the same man Alvarez is pointing us to? Margaret pressed her palm to her temple. Two choices, trust Alvarez's contact and risk betrayal, or follow Daniel's trail and face mercenaries head-on. Noah stirred, his voice groggy. Grandma, what if Dad doesn't want to be saved? The question cut like a blade. Margaret thought of Daniel as a boy, building forts in the yard. As a man, tired behind his computer, whispering half-truths. Could he still be that same man? Her jaw set. We follow the trail. If Daniel left it, then he's still fighting. And if he's fighting, so am I. Ethan gave a grim nod. Then the docks it is. The port of Chicago loomed like a sleeping beast, cranes jutting into the sky. Containers stretched in endless rows under harsh yellow lamps. Margaret parked 3 blocks away. The night air carried diesel and lake water. Noah clutched her hand. Ethan checked his laptop one last time. This is it. Coordinates point here. Margaret's heart pounded. She had imagined this moment 100 times. Finding Daniel. Hugging him. But unease gnawed at her. Guards patrolled the lanes, radios crackling. Not dockworkers, mercenaries. On a hacked camera feed, Margaret saw movement, workers unloading crates. And then. Her breath caught. Daniel. Thinner, shadowed, jacket too big. 2 armed men flanked him. He carried a clipboard, pretending to work, but his walk was stiff. He wasn't free. Noah gasped. Dad. Margaret gripped his hand. Not yet. Daniel turned, his eyes sweeping the yard, and landing on them. For one frozen heartbeat, mother and son locked eyes across the steel labyrinth. His face gave nothing away. But his hand brushed his jacket twice, their secret code. Trust me. Then the guards barked, and Daniel snapped back into motion. Ethan cursed. He's stalling. But if we move now, we're dead. Margaret suddenly felt it, the weight in her bag, heavier than before. She opened it slightly. A small black device blinked red. A tracker. Her breath hitched. Daniel hadn't just signaled her. He had slipped it into her bag. Ethan's face went white. They'll be on us in minutes. He gave us away. Margaret's heart twisted. Had Daniel betrayed them, or was this another breadcrumb? Shouts echoed. Flashlights sliced the darkness. The hunt began. Margaret crushed the tracker under her boot until the light died. The silence afterward felt like holding her breath underwater. Noah clung to her arm. Grandma, if Dad's not the same anymore, do we leave him? Her heart broke. She looked into his wide, fearful eyes. She couldn't lie. We don't leave family, she said softly. We find the truth. Ethan muttered but didn't argue. We need to move. Now. Margaret pulled Noah close. Daniel was alive. Daniel was dangerous. And Daniel was still her son. The dock smelled of oil and iron. Margaret kept Noah close, Ethan just ahead. They moved low, guided by cranes above and shouts across the water. A container shifted overhead. Margaret froze, listening. The mercenaries were closing the circle. Then she saw him again. Daniel. Floodlights washed over his face, older, worn, but alive. Noah gasped softly. Margaret silenced him. Daniel stumbled, dropped his clipboard, glanced toward her, their eyes locked. And then chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked, sparks flying from steel. Margaret shielded Noah with her body. Ethan swore, dragging his laptop close. Daniel lunged at a guard, wrenching the rifle from his hands. A brutal struggle. He shouted across the gunfire, "Go! Get out!" But Margaret couldn't move. Her eyes fixed on him. Daniel ripped something from his pocket, a small black device. Another tracker. He hurled it toward her. Red light blinked. Ethan cursed. He's marking us again. Margaret's hands shook. Condemning them, or guiding them? She couldn't tell. Mercenaries swarmed. Daniel vanished into the containers. Silence fell. Then Margaret saw it, a leather briefcase under a forklift, its lock glinting. Worn. Old. Her pulse thundered. He had thrown the tracker, then left this. She darted forward, grabbed the case, dragged it back. Ethan's fingers shook at the lock. We can't crack it here. But this is what he wanted you to find. Noah whispered, Daddy left it for us. Footsteps pounded closer. Floodlights swept the stacks. Margaret made her choice. We run. They sprinted through the maze of steel. Gunfire sparked off rails. Ethan shoved open a boxcar, boosting Noah inside. Margaret climbed after him. Ethan followed, briefcase tight. The freight jolted, then lurched forward. They were moving. Through the slit, Margaret saw the yard blur and vanish. For a fleeting moment, relief washed through her. But Ethan's jaw was tight. They'll track the train. We've bought hours, not days. Margaret stared at the case. Locked, waiting. Can you open it? She asked. Not random, Ethan muttered. Daniel said it. Personal. You know him, try. Her fingers trembled over the dials. 3 numbers. She closed her eyes, hearing Daniel's boyhood voice, Mom, remember this. She twisted, 1-9-8-4. His birth year. A soft click. The lid creaked open. Documents. Flash drives. Photographs. Margaret's stomach dropped. Crates marked with relief agency emblems, stuffed with rifles, explosives, missiles. Then photos of politicians, executives, uniforms, shaking hands. And Daniel, grainy in a surveillance shot, slipping into a facility. "They'll frame him," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "No. He risked everything to prove it. But if they get this case, they'll bury him, and all of you." At the bottom lay a note in Daniel's hand. "Mom, if you're reading this, I failed to get it out. These files prove everything. Don't trust officials. Don't trust the company. Only Miller, Tribune. Protect Noah. If they catch you, it's lost." Margaret folded the note, tears wetting the paper. The train slowed, brakes screeching. Through the slit, she saw black SUVs waiting at the stop. Men in dark jackets spilled out. Ethan's hand was steady on her arm. "We don't outgun them. We outthink them." They slipped into the steam, boots hitting dirt. Shouts rose. Floodlights cut the fog. "Run!" Margaret hissed. Bullets cracked off steel as they sprinted. And then, Daniel. Disheveled, bleeding, but alive. He pulled them into his arms for a fleeting second, before urgency returned to his eyes. "Miller's waiting east, safe house by the river. We have to make it." Margaret saw shadows tightening. Daniel squeezed her hand. "This ends today. Either we deliver this, or none of us walk away." Her fear burned away, replaced by steel. She straightened, gripping Noah's hand. "Then we run. And we don't stop." The three of them surged into the mist, freight yard erupting behind them. Every step was fire, every breath a vow. Because the truth was in their hands. And Margaret Ellis was done running.